Welcome back, third grade. Are you enjoying Winn Dixie? What's been your favorite part so far? Think about that. What's been the best part so far? I bet I know what a lot of you would say. I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to put thoughts in your head. But I bet there's been, if you're making those great pictures in your mind, there are some funny things that have happened, some things that have happened that have touched our hearts, a few things that have been kind of sad too. Let's look at our words. So we're reading today chapters 9 and 10. I just have two vocab words that I thought needed a little bit of explaining. Overgrown. Just if you haven't been able to work in your yard much and things get out of control, just stuff growing everywhere. Usually this happens like in July where things really start to go crazy. But then they're starting to look just thick and out of control. That's when they're overgrown. And we're talking about plants and grass and stuff like that. And the other word, green thumb. Green thumb refers to, that's a term we might use for somebody that's really good with plants and planting things. They're said to have a green thumb, just that they're very good in the garden or with house plants, or maybe even a farmer, we might say, would have a green thumb. All right, so chapter 9. When we left off the last chapter, Opal had she got a job, remember? Do you remember where she got the job? At the pet store, yep. And why did she want that job there? There was a reason a specific reason she wanted the job. Because she wanted to get a leash and a collar for Winn Dixie, and she didn't have the money to do it, to buy it all at once. So she asked if she could pay in installments, and Otis didn't seem too happy about that idea. So she said, well, can I work here and pay it off that way? And so that's what she's decided to do. So she's met Otis at the pet store. You remember the crazy parrot, Gertrude, the parrot, who landed on Winn Dixie's head. And then as she was leaving the store, she ran into Sweetie Pie Thomas and had a little conversation with her. So when we left Opal at the end of chapter 8, she was feeling, her heart was getting filled up. She's feeling happy, like she's making some friends, has a purpose. So she's feeling pretty good, okay? All right, so chapter 9, we're on page 60. All right, you there? Remember, it's important that you follow the words as I read, okay? That's really important to me. That way you get to recognize the words. And remember, you all, the voices that I'm giving these people, that's just the way I feel like they would sound. The way you think might be totally different. I don't know. That's just the voices I've given them. But when you're reading books like that, if you can give voices to people, it just helps you understand the material a little bit better, okay? All right, chapter 9. Just about everything that happened to me that summer happened because of Winn Dixie. For instance, without him, I would never have met Gloria Dump. He was the one who introduced us. What happened was this. I was riding my bike home from Gertrude's Pets, and Winn Dixie was running along beside me. We went past Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry's house, and when Dunlap and Stevie saw me, they got on their bikes and they started to follow me. They wouldn't ride with me. They just rode behind me and whispered things that I couldn't hear. Neither one of them had any hair on his head because their mama shaved their heads every week during the summer because of the one time Dunlap got fleas in his hair from their cat Sadie. And now they looked like two identical bald-headed babies, even though they weren't twins. Dunlap was 10 years old like me, and Stevie was 9 and tall for his age. I can hear you, I hollered back at them. I can hear what you're saying. But I couldn't. Winn Dixie started to race way ahead of me. You better watch out, Dunlap hollered. That dog is headed right for the witch's house. Winn Dixie, I called, but he kept on going faster and hopped a gate and went into the most overgrown jungle of a yard that I had ever seen. You better go get your dog out of there, Dunlap said. The witch will eat your dog, Stevie said. Shut up, I told them. I got off my bike and went up to the gate and hollered, Winn Dixie, you better come on out of there. But he didn't. She's probably eating him right now, Stevie said. He and Dunlap were standing behind me. She eats dogs all the time. Get lost, you bald-headed babies, I said. Hey, said Dunlap, that ain't a very nice way for a preacher's daughter to talk. He and Stevie backed up a little. I stood there and thought for a minute. I finally decided that I was more afraid of losing Winn Dixie than I was of having to deal with a dog-eating witch. So I went through the gate and into the yard. That witch is going to eat the dog for dinner and you for dessert, Stevie said. We'll tell the preacher what happened to you, Dunlap shouted after me. By then, I was deep in the jungle. Now, she's saying she's deep in the jungle. She's not really in the jungle. But remember, we talked about the word overgrown. So Gloria Dump's yard is very overgrown. It kind of looks like a jungle, okay? There was every kind of thing growing everywhere. There were flowers and vegetables and trees and vines. Winn Dixie, I said. I heard, this dog sure likes to eat. I went around a really big tree all covered in moss, and there was Winn Dixie. He was eating something right out of the witch's hand. She looked up at me. This dog sure likes peanut butter, she said. You can always trust a dog that likes peanut butter. She was old with crinkly brown skin. She had on a big floppy hat with flowers all over it, and she didn't have any teeth. But she didn't look like a witch. She looked nice, and Winn Dixie liked her, I could tell. I'm sorry he got into your garden, I said. You ain't got to be sorry, she said. I enjoy a little company. My name's Opal, I told her. My name's Gloria Dump, she said. Ain't that a terrible last name, Dump? My last name is Baloney, I said. Sometimes the kids at school back home in Watley called me lunch meat. Ha! Gloria Dump laughed. What about this dog? What'd you call him? Winn Dixie, I said. Winn Dixie thumped his tail on the ground. He tried smiling, but it was hard with his mouth all full of peanut butter. Winn Dixie? Gloria Dump said. You mean like the grocery store? Yes, ma'am. Ooh-wee, she said. That takes the strange name prize, don't it? Yes, ma'am, I said. I was just fixing to make myself a peanut butter sandwich, she said. You want one too? All right, I said. Yes, please. Go on and sit down, she said, pointing at the lawn chair with the back all busted out of it. But sit down careful. I sat down careful, and Gloria Dump made me a peanut butter sandwich on white bread. Then she made one for herself and put her false teeth in to eat it. When she was done, she said to me, You know, my eyes ain't too good at all. I can't see nothing but the general shape of things, so I got to rely on my heart. Why don't you go on and tell me everything about yourself so I can see you with my heart? And because Winn Dixie was looking up at her like she was the best thing he had ever seen, and because the peanut butter sandwich had been so good, and because I had been waiting for a long time to tell some person everything about me, I did. Okay, so remember at the beginning, Winn Dixie is running, kind of running away from Opal, and she's chasing after him right towards this yard that Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry said, ooh, he's going to the witch's yard. And Opal is kind of like, doesn't want to believe that, but she's kind of like, yikes, you know, what's going to happen in that yard? What kind of person lives there? And, but she decides getting Winn Dixie is more important to her than any old witch, whatever. She just wanted her sweet dog back. So she went into the yard, and of course she realizes Gloria Dump is not a witch. That's just a tale that Stevie and Dunlap Dewberry have. You might have a house. I remember when I was a little girl, we had a house in our neighborhood that we always said was like the witch's house because the yard was kind of overgrown and the house was a little bit run down, and we would always, like, we wouldn't go trick-or-treating there or anything because it scared us. But that's how they kind of felt about Opal's house. And, not Opal's house, Gloria Dump's house. But as Opal enters there, she realizes Gloria Dump's a pretty nice person. Her big test was that Winn Dixie really liked Opal. Winn Dixie really liked Gloria Dump. And so Opal said, well, if Winn Dixie likes Gloria Dump, I think she must be okay. Now, the really wonderful thing about Gloria Dump, well, sorry for her, she can't see very well. But she said the way that she gets to know people, because she can't see them very well with her eyes, is that she listens with her heart. She gets to know people with her heart. And so she said, tell me everything about yourself to Opal. Well, gosh, Opal has been waiting to tell somebody about herself, about a lot that's happened in her life. She hasn't really had anyone to talk to. She has the preacher, but remember that she was a little uncomfortable talking to him about her mama and different things. And so I don't think she feels like she can really freely talk to the preacher. But here, Gloria Dump has said, tell me everything about yourself. So Opal's kind of like, all right. And she's kind of excited about that. All right, chapter 10. Of course, making your predictions, you probably realize Opal's going to be talking to Gloria Dump. We're on page 67. I told Gloria Dump everything. I told her how me and the preacher had just moved to Naomi and how I had to leave all my friends behind. I told her about my mama leaving, and I listed out the 10 things that I knew about her. And I explained that here in Naomi, I missed Mama more than I ever had in Watley. I told her about the preacher being like a turtle, hiding all the time inside his shell. I told her about finding Winn Dixie in the produce department and how because of him, I became friends with Miss Franny Block and got a job working for a man named Otis at Gertrude Pets and got invited to Sweetie Pie Thomas's birthday party. I even told Gloria Dump how Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry called her a witch, but I told her they were stupid, mean, bald-headed boys, and I didn't believe them. Not for long, anyhow. And the whole time I was talking, Gloria Dump was listening. She was nodding her head and smiling and frowning and saying, and is that right? I could feel her listening with all her heart, and it felt good. You know what? She said when I was all done. What? Could be that you got more of your mama in you than just red hair and freckles and running fast. Really? I said. Like what? Like maybe you got her green thumb? The two of us could plant something and see how it grows. Test your thumb out. Okay, I said. What Gloria Dump picked for me to grow was a tree. Or she said it was a tree. To me it looked more like a plant. She had me dig a hole for it and put it in the ground and pack the dirt around it tight like it was a baby and I was tucking it into bed. What kind of tree is this? I asked Gloria Dump. It's a wait and see tree, she said. Well, what's that mean? It means you gotta wait for it to grow up before you know what it is. Can I come back and see it tomorrow? I asked. Child, she said, as long as this is my garden, you're welcome in it. But that tree ain't gonna have changed much by tomorrow. But I want to see you too, I said. Said Gloria Dump. I ain't going nowhere. I'll be right here. I woke Winn Dixie up then. He had peanut butter in his whiskers and he kept yawning and stretching. He licked Gloria Dump's hand before we left and I thanked her. That night when the preacher was tucking me into bed, I told him how I got a job at Gertrude's Pets, and I told him all about making friends with Miss Franny Block and getting invited to Sweetie Pie's party, and I told him about meeting Gloria Dump. Winn Dixie lay on the floor waiting for the preacher to leave so he could hop up on the bed like he always did. When I was done talking, the preacher kissed me goodnight, and then he leaned way over and gave Winn Dixie a kiss too, right on top of his head. You can go ahead and get up there now, he said to Winn Dixie. Winn Dixie looked at the preacher. He didn't smile at him, but he opened his mouth wide like he was laughing, like the preacher had just told the funniest joke in the world, and this is what amazed me the most. The preacher laughed back. Winn Dixie hopped up on the bed, and the preacher got up and turned out the light. I leaned over and kissed Winn Dixie too, right on top of the head, but he didn't notice. He was already asleep and snoring. All right, so Opal has made yet another friend. I mean, when she was telling the preacher all that had happened to her, that's a lot to have happened. I don't know if all that was in one day or not, but boy, she's had a lot happen to her. So in this chapter, she talked to Gloria Dump. And remember, Gloria Dump just listened. So she, I feel like, thinks of Gloria Dump as kind of a grandmotherly figure maybe. She's older. and just listens. You know how grandmas just love their little grandchildren so much. So just listening to her very intently with all her heart, loving Winn Dixie. She said, let's see if you have a green thumb too, like your mama. Let's plant something. And so they plant a tree there, and Gloria said it's a wait and see tree because she wasn't sure what kind of tree it was. So they'll have to wait till it grows up and see what kind of tree it was. And Opal's like, well, can I come back tomorrow to see the tree? And Gloria said, well, of course you can come back. I don't think the tree will have changed much, but you're welcome here anytime. And so she has made yet another very dear friend. So when we meet again, we'll be reading, of course, chapter 11. I don't know if it's 11 and 12 or just 11, but we'll be gathering back to read more in here. Again, you can read ahead if you want to, but please don't tell anybody what happens. You make your predictions, okay? Though if you're reading ahead, I want you making predictions. I want you making pictures in your mind of everything that's happening. You know, this movie is out and about. I know it's on Netflix, but please don't watch it yet. Okay, let's get this book finished. If we get to come together again before the school year is over, that's in the plans to watch the movie together. If we don't get to, then that'll be something you can do on your own. But please don't ever read books first. It's just so fun to make the pictures and the voices and the settings in your mind. It's just such an exciting thing. And generally, people like the books better than the movies. So, you know, please just wait. Hold off. I know it's tempting, but just hold off, okay? That'll be something to look forward to. Okay, so you're going to do your summary. Now, this one, I think you can go ahead and put together. So I've got chapters 9 and 10 excuse me, and what I wrote for my summary, I said, when Dixie runs away from Opal and into Gloria Dump's yard. Gloria Dump is a great listener. So I didn't go into the whole, I mean, you might want to add, the Dewberry Boys told Opal that Gloria Dump is a witch. There's other things you can add in here if you want to. Whatever helps your brain, you decide. Now, you don't want to add every little detail because this is mainly supposed to be just a summary, a main idea of what the chapters are about. But there could be some little things that you're thinking, I think I'd like to add that in there. That would help my little memory when I go back to look at my chapter summaries. So at the end, like when we finish this book, if I have you put certain events in order, these chapter summaries that you've been keeping track of should be helpful in doing an activity like that. That's why I want to make sure that you hang on to these, okay? For different reasons, just for many reasons. Okay, everybody good? Ready for the day? Okay. All right, I will see you again when we get together again to read chapter 11. In the meantime, what am I going to say? Be good, be sweet, work hard. I know you're doing well. I'm really proud of you coming, making it through these really, you know, things happening so differently, so fast. But you're doing a good job. Okay, you all just be sweet. I'll see you next time.